Good afternoon and welcome everybody to our third interactive broadcast of our third live show, I think, of the 14th Tete the Opera Festival from Cockpit Broadcasting. My name's Bill Banks-Jones, Artistic Director of Tete, here to welcome you and also to let you know how our interactive broadcasts work. At the end of my intro, we'll play the film. At the end of that, we'd love you to ask whatever you like using the chat function. Just type your questions into the chat. Last thing to say before we watch the piece is that we would love you to make donations. There will be a link that will appear later, easydonate.org/something or other, we'll find out in a bit. Where you can send your donations to the artist. We kept the ticket prices for these broadcasts very low because we thought it's better to get you in here and then show your appreciation once you've seen what happens. It was a great show. I'm excited. I haven't seen this one yet, actually. I saw the first of two performances on Thursday, and as you'll see, the show is very reactive to what the audience does. They are part of the creation of it. Anyway, without further ado, let us watch Come Bargain with Uncanny Things.
I'm guessing you all have these as well? Yes. Yeah, you've got them all? You've got all the different instructions. Okay, so who here is new to a bargaining ritual? We have 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have most of it. We have one veteran, which is going to be really useful. So the important thing to do if you haven't been to a bargain before, I'm here to keep you safe. My colleague is here to keep you safe. But the more you can read through the information, the better. You can always ask us questions, which will be helpful. I'll be doing the offering part of the section, so think about offerings. I'm just trying to... So one of the first offerings I ever made to an uncanny thing was I promised it I would cut my hair off and give it my hair, which was kind of impressive because at that age I did have pigtails that went down to here, and it was a pretty good bargain. That's a little extreme. We'll be taking you through the baby steps. Because again, safety is paramount. If you give them too much or the wrong thing, it's not always such a good idea. But we're warded, we're in good company. I think we should be fine. And don't mind if it messes with your head a little.
Looking forward, as much as one can, to conducting our rituals this evening safely, securely, and productively for your community. Any questions from me whilst I just get set up? I must remind you all, do cleanse your hands when in contact with anything that this uncanny thing has interacted with. They do have that attuned nature with the weird, those elements of our world that wish us ill and change the fabric of our world. So do decontaminate when appropriate. Don't want you taking anything home with you that you might regret. These things spread So, please be attentive. Do ask questions. And stay without the circle unless invited in by myself or by Mars. Speaking of who, I have never worked with Mars before. I have heard very interesting things about the work that they do with you guys. I'd love to get your take for my research. I mean, how have your experiences been? Good outcomes for your community? Anyone? Well, I nonetheless have heard really good things. We don't exactly see eye to eye on how to enter into bargains with these things, but their reputation precedes them, and all will go smoothly. Good. Good.
It's really, really good to see you here tonight. I cannot tell you how much, looking forward to is the wrong word, how much we've needed this. I know that a lot of you, well, a lot of us are concerned about the floods, and this is going to be a ritual about the flooding. We are too few in number to do a ritual about the whole cause of the flooding. What we can do is enact a ritual to find out what happened to Morsenborg. I know you've seen the posters, I know your children or your brothers and sisters or your nibblings may have been at school with Morsen as their teacher. It's been 2 weeks, we don't know why, he disappeared. But if we can ask this uncanny thing, we can find out whether he was taken by an uncanny thing, whether he drowned in the floodwaters. I don't know, whether he just skipped town because he had a secret lover in the south of France, as if that still exists anymore. Maybe it's that, but we can find out. Time is limited, people. Once we get started, we can't stop. Not if you get cold feet and you're scared and it feels taboo. Not if you suddenly grow a sense of conscience and ethics over whether we should even be doing this. We have an hour from now. That's as long as Mr. Ludgate and I can keep this thing under control. And we can discuss the ethics of it afterwards, but we're here to find Morsen. It's your job, as our witnesses, to invoke, to offer, and to do the communication. It is our role to keep this bound, to keep everybody here safe, and your job to work out what the ritual is going to do and to make sure it happens. Please, unless we ask you to speak, or you're in that circle, do not speak. The last time that happened, it was not an easy walk home for that person. Cleanse your hands if you are touching anything around here, because the weird is traveling skin to skin and skin to object, and it itches, so please don't. And during the ritual, please, if you can, keep your mask on, because the uncanny thing like teeth, they do not care if they pull it out of your jaws, and if you cannot wear a mask, for God's sake, do not smile. Just don't smile at it. Now, when we conduct this ritual, the sound of our spoken voices is going to be distinctly unpleasant for this creature, and we need it on our side. So I need you to show us consensus by humming. We hum when we want an option. So if I said, for example, Are you pleased to be here tonight? Yes. And hopefully you would hum afterwards. Exactly. And when we have options to choose from, that's how we're going to decide. And this is Graham. So Graham, you may be able to tell, is our professional. So I would like everyone here, let's be on our best behavior. Let's not do what we did the last time, or let's wait until Graham goes home. I'm just kidding, it's all fine. But thank you so much, Mr. Ludgate, for joining us. We need both of us here. As is customary, Graham will be going first. Then we will be bargaining for our community. And again, as is my right, as home bargainer, I will be going last. Let's get this moving.
Hi everybody. Graham Ludgate, met some of you already. It's a privilege to do my duty as your guest bargainer this evening. And let's get this ritual started.
Absolutely.
This uncanny thing is getting itchy already. So let's crack on.
To the uncanny things, if it complies.
In my people's library, our books are turning black. And when that mist fades, more books have become blank. Last week, my photo album was one of those books. Now it is blank on the pages, showing my sister. So, our objective. I ask you, help me protect my people's library against this mist that rises, causing this decay of our resources. Restore these lost pages if you can, especially of my book. Our obstacles, weird things, like these mists, can only be controlled by bargains, much as we wish otherwise, and this uncanny thing must be forced by you, using these invocations and offerings you craft. You have all the information needed to do so. We will help you do this.
As Home Wagner, I agree this is an acceptable use of ritual. Let us proceed.
Good. You all have 3 options in front of you as witnesses. You may craft an invocation to force this uncanny thing to do what we need. I can teach you to do this. Or you may choose to make an offering to this thing and earn its favor. As your expertise precedes you, they will help. Or one amongst you may enter into divination with this thing, find out what secrets it may be hiding, but only one of you can be our diviner. Think what you might choose to do while we begin the divination. So, one among you who will divine in communion with this uncanny thing. Raise your hand if you wish to volunteer. Come, witnesses. Good. One brave soul. Now, when I cue, you will enter into this circle via the blue guiding line. Now, enter.
Cleanse your hands, mortal. Listen to me, only listen to me, ignore nothing mortal, bargain. Can you imagine your mind in library, the pathetic books in library of grey.
Now, while this divination takes place,
Can you imagine
some of us
library?
must craft an invocation, others must solve an offering, a gift for this thing.
Imagine in front of you 2 shelves.
I will exchange
Do you remember a
and
blue
explain
book? What is your
our
favorite
invocation
book?
procedure, and Mars will explain offerings. So, if you are going to invoke, as you can see from my rather fabulous article in your little packs, witnesses,
Imagine the entire
an invocation is a
shelf.
simple formula.
Repeat.
You must invoke the uncanny thing
To your right.
via
That
an
book.
element of your choosing. You may choose iron, firm, powerful.
Can you imagine that?
They
So
hate it. fire so strong, so unpredictable, or perhaps by water. They like that it can be unpredictable. So you choose your element, then you must endure the difficulties we face. In this case, reject the difficulties of the mists rising, my library becoming black. Then lastly, state the one thing you wish this thing to do. Perhaps cleanse the mist, reinstate the books. Only one thing. Mars.
The other doors, a door you have walked past often, you recognize it, you can't remember what it is.
Offerings must be
Which door would
given
you
to
like
get
to go
something from the uncanny things.
You
Nothing
enter the
comes for
strange
free in this
door,
world.
living out your
An
heart.
offering is any kind of gift that appeals to the uncanny thing. This is the heart of our bargain. Offerings can be many and various, but in this case, we'll go easy. The uncanny thing likes human things, deeply, deeply human things. So, write a secret on a paper for the eyes of the uncanny thing alone, or share your strangest dream, the dreams that don't make sense on waking. Anyone brave enough to make this offering will have my thanks. You will give it to the uncanny thing and earn a debt in return.
So, those of you who are not divining must choose. Will you craft an invocation, this simple formula, or will you choose to make an offering? And then you will choose amongst you. So, raise your hand if you wish to work on a formula of invocation with me.
The books have gone blank because he has forgotten her face.
Any invocations? Who is willing? Good. This fine witness. We will craft an invocation. And if you wish to make an offering, find a secret or something of desire for this thing, raise your hand. Good. At least one witness wishes to make an offering.
Find oblivion that does not hurt.
Good.
Does not feel things as mortals do. There is only one way to find oblivion for the next human and that is time.
So, Invoker, if you have a question, ask it now.
For all things, perhaps not for mine kind. Is that an answer you can accept?
It is.
Glad of it. Cleanse your hand.
Offerer, if you have a question, ask it now.
And wait, the bargains will come for you soon, kind mortal. You have done well.
Don't worry, I'll be here to guide you.
You, diviner, what have you learned?
I have learned why your sister is missing from the books. She is gone because you have forgotten her. The mists reflected what was within you. You forgot her face, and so her histories have passed into another chamber, a chamber where all that is forgotten goes.
I see. A labyrinth of forgetting. I've heard of these masks.
I've heard of these too, a punishment from the uncanny things who never forget and scorn those of us who do.
So be it. Diviner, you have done well indeed. Return via the guiding line.
It is now time for us to perform our ritual. Offerer, would you stand? You don't need to tell us what you've written, but have you an offering to give?
Cleanse your hands. All mortals seem to choose to kneel. It is not a requirement of the ritual to kneel if you do not wish. You do not have to kneel if you do not wish to kneel. If you wish to stand, I am aware for your kind it is easy. What have you brought for me? What offering?
I have brought you a map.
A map. For that I will give you 4 tokens. Place the map in the green vessel. And pass it to me. Pass it to me. Take them back, cunning mortal, and place them in the bowl. This is a beautiful map. Cleanse your hands.
Offerer, thank you. You may return.
A brave offering indeed. Now, our invoker, please stand. Tell us, by what will you invoke?
Iron.
You will invoke by iron. So you say, I invoke you by iron. What do you abjure?
The weird.
You abjure the weird. You say, I abjure you by the weird. And what goal do you have?
To find this man.
Ah, powerful. Perhaps my people will suffer, but all is well. Let us proceed. So, come into the center of the circle.
Cleanse your hands. What is your invocation?
I invoke by iron.
You abjure,
I abjure by the weird.
and to do.
To find this man.
That will cost you 11 tokens. Place them in the green vessel. You'll find them before.
That's all of them.
All of them. Well, place them in. Now we must power this ritual with our stamping. This is a tradition long established in these rituals. So, as the tokens are exchanged, join me now. Proceed, invoker. Pass the tokens to the uncanny thing. Cease!
In exchange for these tokens, First, cleanse your hands. Go.
Return.
In exchange for this offering of the beautiful, beautiful apple on the side of mortals and the binding power of iron, I shall tell you where Morrison Hawk is. He is in the space you mortals cannot go, as you see Morrison Hawk. He's in the world of the uncanny things, in the world of the flood and the weird. But that is a place where there is no specific space. The world is infinite and rolling there. But he is found. I have my eye on him. And I have told you what I can come.
Witnesses the second ritual of 3. Time is ticking ever onward. We came here today to find out what happened to Morrison Hawk. And now we know where he is. And we have a choice now. My colleague, my friend, came here to ask our help. We have limited time. We have limited resources. What will you choose? Will this ritual bring us back our teacher? Or will it help my friend? Will it restore his library and also his sister's face to him? You must choose, witnesses. It is your power and your consent. Come now if you wish to bring back Morrison Hawk. And hum now if you wish to bring back the knowledge of Graham's library. I'm sorry.
I do not resent this action. You must do right by your people, and I must abide by your decisions.
The decisions of witnesses are final. Bear that in mind. So our objective is to bring back Morrison Hawk. The obstacle is the weird itself and the trickery of the uncanny things. Shall we begin?
We must begin divination. One of you must volunteer for this. As before, who will divine?
Who will gain more information for us? Information is power.
This fine witness has already partaken. Good,
Thank
fine
you.
soul.
Follow the blue line. And remember the rest of you, we will be invoking, we will be offering, we will teach you.
Lend your hand.
See.
While this divination occurs, some of you must craft an invocation. We must encourage, force, cajole this thing to give us what we need. You can do as before.
It is a bird.
Direct it
You may have
simply.
seen the bright
I
yellow
invoke
beak,
you by.
a black
iron,
striped body
fire,
about the size
water.
of your fist,
I
perhaps a
abjure
little larger.
the disappearance of Morsin.
It is eating a snail.
I require
A
you
slimy
to bring
beautiful
him back
snail.
as an example.
What would you like to do?
Or you may add
As
more
the water
complicated,
pours down the gutter?
potent, puissant elements.
I would like to
You
know
may
more
invoke
about
by
the burn's location.
Death, hope.
As you look around,
The
you
flood.
see the bird
These
standing
are
in the gutter on
options,
the
sure,
side of a
powerful,
tall building,
but
tall,
dangerous.
beautiful
Or
building,
this
crumbling
thing might
with age.
enjoy a
The gutter
pleasing
itself is
run.
wide
Some
and made of
florid
heavy metal. You find yourself
images.
smaller than you expect, that you yourself can lie within the
Let's
gutter.
find out.
And as the bird watches you
And
waiting, it
as for
comes
your
to you and lances
offerings,
down and
You can
impales
keep them the same,
And as you
but
push,
we're
as
asking
you
for
fade
something
into
big
the
this
dark, you
time.
find yourself waiting in the
So
darkness.
we may want to
And you wait to find yourself once again
power them
healed
up.
horribly in the gutter.
The
Once again,
uncanny
you see the
things like
blackbird
secrets,
hops on
it's
its left foot,
true.
pauses,
They
it hops
also
again
like
on its left, hops
dreams,
again on its left foot,
but
and
they
glides
love
down for the snail.
human
And the
ignorance.
water pours away to the
Look,
gutter.
Look at all the
Looking at the
information
blackbird
we've
and
been
what would you like to
given.
do?
If we agreed to rip it up, scatter it
I
around
would like
us,
to speak to the bird.
the uncanny thing
What is it
may
you say to the bird?
please
If we
itself
see
at
our
our
missing person,
expense. Or else,
Speak to the
if
blackbird.
you value
It speaks
knowledge
to you in
and
the language of
learning,
birds, which in this labyrinth you
the
understand. And the
uncanny
blackbird, it says to
thing
you, I
likes
see all
human
humans as
dance.
alike. They are those below, those
Not a
above the
perfect
sky.
dance, not
Those
a
around whom
trained
strange
dance
things
the
flit and
fae
haunt.
could do,
I do not know this man.
but something
I have not
real,
seen it.
something
But the water pours away into the gutter. There is another
truly
world there.
human.
Perhaps along
A
the gutter there is a
secret,
way.
a dream, the destruction of knowledge or
what
dancing.
is it got to?
Each of you must decide, but we need an offering, or all this
Could you
is
repeat that for me?
nothing.
What would you
Raise
like
your
to do?
hand
Where
if
does
you
the gutter
will
lead
write an
to?
It leads
offering,
down, down into the darkness.
write an invocation.
Is there any line?
You wish to craft
There
an
is no light at
invocation
the end
with
of the
me?
gutter,
Good.
only sound, the sound
One
of
solid
speaking.
volunteer.
Thank
Has
you.
the
Or
bird
an
been to the
offering
end of the gutter?
Who will
The
give
bird tells you it
this
has never
thing
been to the end of the
something
gutter. It is
powerful?
a blackbird and it
Raise
loves
your
the
hand
sky.
if you wish to make an offering
The gutter goes underground.
with
it tells
Mars's
you.
help.
But that may be where your journey lies.
All may apply. Multiple is good. More power, more choice. Good.
Is there
One.
anything at
Any
the end
more?
of the gutter
Another
that
excellent.
might be useful
Good.
to our quest?
We have
Would you like
options,
to go down
Mars.
to the gutter
Two
and
is
see?
enough.
Yes.
You slide down the gutter, you find yourself stood in the
Does
sewer.
anyone have
You hear a
questions
great
for
wave filled
us?
with chicken. That is a great
Does
further
anyone
along
need
which
our
is silent.
help?
Which grave would you like to go to?
No. Graham,
Which way can
I
go?
believe I told
You
you
can
a
either grave the silent one
story
further away or the
of a
digital one
dance
near.
I did
Which one
once
would
as
you
an
choose to
offering.
go to?
I would go the further way.
Have you ever done
You go
such
to
a
the silent
dance
place, you
yourself?
pass a
I
grate filled with snarling
prefer
howling
to
rats and a
stay
voice
within the bounds
nimbly
allowed
and
for
pour
me.
out the grate into a canal.
As you know,
The canal, you see in front of you three
Yes,
rocks,
but I had
three
a
gates in the
wonderful
water.
image in my
One
mind.
is full, another
Potent,
half
I'm
empty,
sure.
the
Yes,
third
indeed.
entirely empty.
they like that.
Which would you like to choose?
The half full.
You pass into the half full lock, you find
I
that as your
cannot
body
give you
scrapes
my
along the
ordained
concrete, you once
pencil,
again
but
feel the horrible ripping
if you
of
were
the
to
blackbird's beak. You fade into
exit
the
and
darkness.
ask, it would be provided for you.
wait once again in the gutter. The
Excellent,
blackbird does
even
not
better.
remember you. It simply pops
Your people
once,
have
it
retained
pauses,
such
pops
technology.
twice on its left
A
foot,
flood
and then dives
dealt
down
with
to
that
the
for
snail.
us long ago
What
down
would you
my
like to
way.
do?
Am I in
We
the
have
same
it only on
place I've been at the
Fridays,
beginning?
but on Fridays it's extremely helpful. Thank
Can
you.
I go down the
witness.
gutter again, or will I always end up in the same place?
The only way to go is to try. I do not give hints to my labyrinth. You go down the gutter. Would you like to go to the silent grate again?
Yes.
You pass through the place of three locks, one full, one half empty, one empty. Which do you choose?
Full.
You pass into the full one and find yourself in the ocean. A tidal wave is pouring behind you. There is a boat in front of you with a person who does not seem to notice you as you swim. Which way would you like to go?
I would like to go to the person. Can I?
Of course, you swim towards the person, they do not seem to see you.
Is it because of their state of mind, or is it because of mine?
It seems to
will
be
be
this
making
place
an
you do not
offering?
understand.
Are you sure of what you
This is the
wish
world of the
to
flood,
give
and
this
mortals
thing?
cannot be seen. They do not see each other.
This
They are
witness
lost.
seems sure.
So this person is not immortal too.
It would appear so.
Yes.
Is it the person
What is
I'm
your
looking
idea?
for?
It is not a Morsing Hawk, it's a stranger with a grey hair and vast eyebrows.
Faces spreading.
You see them looking into the depths
Powerful
of the tidal wave approaches. What would you
indeed.
like to do?
You have to
Is there
follow
any
through on
way
such
to make
promises.
me noticeable
I have
to the
seen
other person to
it go
communicate?
How
poorly
would you
for
like to
those who
try
did
to
not,
communicate
but
with them?
the
Or
people
escape
will
the tidal
decide
wave
if they
you
like
have
your
to walk?
offering best.
I would
Good.
like to communicate to them, or to this one person with the grey hair.
And what do you say?
What is going on?
They seem to vaguely notice you, almost as though they heard a whisper on the wind. There is a person of malice in the world, and has
Graham, the
fallen
time,
you deep into the water.
No
Sense of this person.
I know.
You do not know why.
Diviner,
By
listen
the end
to
of the
me.
labyrinth,
Diviner,
cleanse your hands.
listen to me now. It will keep you talking and talking, and we will have no more time. What did you learn?
I've learned that there's a way out of this world, going down the gutter, and we have 3 options. One is not leading you anywhere, it's just bringing you back to the beginning. The other option, the full option, is to meet someone who cannot see you, who cannot hear you, and seems to be in a world where no mortal can be recognized and where no mortal soul can be found. So the wisest thing to do would be to try the 3rd lock, which is completely empty, to find for our missing person.
Thank you, Diviner. We could not have made it this far without you. Please return. Invoker, remember this. Force or ask the uncanny thing to pick the right way.
Invoker, please stand. Tell us what is your invocation.
I wish to invoke by death and time and loss. And I wish to abjure by weird and flood. And I ask that we may see a path to where our teacher has gone,
A path, good,
and that he may walk it back to us.
well done. This was our only invocation, was it not? No others? Good. So now, approach via the guiding light.
You have no token, mortal.
I have a gift.
An offering first then, good, very good. Approach and make this offering.
And perhaps at the same time a second offering. The gift of knowledge, everyone find your picture of more sin.
Cleanse
and
your hands.
Together it should be powerful enough. Are we ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3!
What is your gift, mortal?
I bring to you a gift of consolation and a gift of pride. This was given to me by someone I love very much when I was in the depths of despair. It brought me back to myself when I was drowned in sorrow. And so I hope that we may use it to bring back one who has been lost to us through weird and flood.
For the destruction of your memory of Mosenhawk's face, for the slow dwindling forgetting, I grant you 5 tokens, but for that I shall grant you such an intriguing gift. Yes, another 5. Place it in the green vessel. Pass it to me. It is a beautiful thing. Take the tokens back. And place them in your bowl, O mortal of oblivion. Your hand.
Stalwart witness, you also will be our invoker. So when you are prepared, speak the invocation.
By death and loss and flood, by death and loss and time, I do invoke thee, and with my voice abjuring weird and flood, the people of Listen Grove beseech thee, return to us our teacher, for he was good.
By death, by time, by flood, intriguing, intoxicating combination. Beautiful words, for that I shall charge you 7 tokens. Place them in the green vessel.
And now to power this exchange, we use this stamping ritual as before. So now, as the exchange takes place, we begin.
Lend your hand and return, mortal of oblivion. In exchange for a prized thing and for the knowledge of the face of Mosenhawk, there is another of my ilk, or something similar, that holds him bound, with whom he made a bargain. But for that generous gift, I shall return him to you. He'll return within the day, not the year he had originally sworn to. And though I am sure he will be most relieved that he has been able to return, I must warn you that you will not recognize him by that face you described. That knowledge shall be lost by the time he comes back. But you have been so very, very generous to me. You have given me so many tokens, taken some back for rightfully earned things. And I must say this is awful, horrible, unabidingly painful to me, to be bound by iron, to be stuck, unable to leave, and the realm of the uncanny things is infinite and joyous. Mine. I seek to ask you a favor. I seek to ask you mortals, ward me against this sort of ritual, ward me against this kind of mortal meddling forevermore. That, if you'd be so kind, is a true thing, for I am bound by the ritual and cannot lie.
Witnesses, our third ritual was going to be different, but we thought before they may have enjoyed this. But it is a true thing, it said. Everything in that circle is true. I ask you this, my witnesses of Listen Grove. The bargain I am owed. The bargain I wish to make is for its freedom. Its freedom. No more wards. No more circles. The objective is to allow it to be free as a sentient creature, like me, like you. The obstacle, yes, we were told we shouldn't do this ever, that they were dangerous and fey. But it speaks and it feels, and no feeling thing should be bound. Please, our objective to free it, our obstacles, is that we must all come together. But with all of us here, we could do it. I ask you, as your bargainer of many years,
I have a duty. I have responsibilities within this ritual, and one is to affirm or object. Mars, do you know what I will choose this day? I cannot affirm this blasphemy. Mars, these things, they do not feel, they do not want what we want. They want the unknowable. They want to torture us. These are uncanny things wants, not to be free. Our world needs this, Mars. We, you, each of you, need this process to survive what difficulties we face. I cannot endorse this bargain. Instead, Mars, you agreed what we would do. Tell your people. What was your bargain?
my original bargain was to know for one moment what it would be like to be one of them, what it would feel like just for one instant to go beyond that veil. But no, Graham. No, I know what you're trying to do here. But it isn't right.
These people should be protected from such things. This perversion, normally, I would never, but the lesser of two evils. No, I say we bargain for what Mars wishes. Break these taboos, such filth. But better that than free this thing.
So, you have a choice between uprightness and cowardice.
Justice.
If you want what I want to free this thing,
Or if you wish to abide by Mars's original bargain, give them what they said they want. a chance to commune with this creature and avoid the greater danger. Come now. Some upright souls, too few for me.
You do a great good here, and you have my thanks. Time is very brief, no time for divination. We need an invocation, we need an offering. Who will write an invocation? Which one of you? Wishes don't make it happen. Invoking, offering. You, could you write an invocation for me? Yes, or both of you together. Thank you. Offerings, anyone? Thank you. Thank you. Please now, time is short, and make it powerful.
Old witness, have you a question? You are ready with your offer? One moment, please. How is our invocation proceeding? They seem deep in thought. Good. Better to be safe than sorry, especially in this unprecedented madness.
Haven't you always wanted to know what would happen? Just a little part of you at least.
Never. I have more sense than you, Mars. I observe our society's rules.
When I pity you, Mr. Ludgate. Offerer, are you ready?
Yes,
Tell us what you want to offer.
I want to offer my pain and my joy through giving some of my hair.
The most powerful offering of this ritual. Come now, follow the blue line. My thanks to you will be unending.
Cleanse your hands. What have you brought for me?
I've brought you my joy and my sorrow, the hair on my head that gives me joy, and the pain plucking it out and offering it to you.
For that, shall we say, 8 tokens. Place it in the green vessel. What a wonderful thing.
Red. And orange.
And mortal. Take the tokens and place them in your body. So many wonderful things. So wonderful things. You've given me mortals. Traced for such things.
Mars, I will say this for your people. They know how to bargain, unwisely or not. Now, invocation makers, please stand. Which of you will offer this invocation? Only one may enter.
We do it jointly.
Very well, but one should enter only. Very good. Hold. What will you invoke by?
Make love.
Invoke by love. And what do you abjure?
The uncanny things freedom.
And what is your goal?
To demand the truth and love and kindness.
Strong. Good. Approach.
Cleanse your hands. What is your invocation?
Make love.
The whole of it. What is the whole of your invocation?
Love.
And you endure.
The freedom.
And your goal.
The truth.
For that, I ask 8 tokens, place them in the green vessel.
Now, as this exchange takes place, we stamp and power this ritual. Begin. Oh!
Cleanse your hands.
Return.
So many wonderful gifts of maps, of beloved belongings, and brightly coloured hair, and wonderful teeth. And at last you choose to sue for my freedom. At last you give me the power to seek my own liberty, and ward me against that which should bind me. My thanks. I will not return to this place you know as Listen Grove. There are other places that I have encountered thanks to your guidance, your explanations of the labyrinth. There are places where Sally Ludgate persists, forgotten by her brother. That seems like a place to start my chase. And now, let us end the ritual and my bounds. If you would be so kind, bargainer. Your bell.
Well, I can definitely tell you, having seen that 3 different occasions, that it's had some very different outcomes. And the person who gave their hair, that was a big surprise. Anyway, let's ask our panel to join us. A very small panel, but rather short time tonight we have as well. So let's welcome Leo Doulton, creator of the concept and structure, and C.N. Lester, who was Mars. Hello, both of you. First thing to ask you, Leo, is what happens if somebody gives you a donation?
If somebody gives us the donation, this was very much a work in progress, because as you can probably tell, it's the kind of work where in rehearsal you really don't have much idea how an audience will respond. We've had some really useful audience responses, which now mean that we well, probably I, for the next few months, can make changes, rewrite things, and the money you give us will then be able to go into bringing it back in a much more polished form, where possibly even COVID will be less of a thing, and we may even invest in a pole that doesn't just have a dustpan sellotape to the end of it. So if you like this, if you want to come to it, and indeed just see more supernatural operatic interaction, then please give us money, because that is the thing that is the main barrier to bringing it back.
Well, yeah, you kind of started interviewing yourself there, because of course an obvious question is what would you change? What would you change?
Yes, so things I would change. I mean, I do have a list, and I did actually write a blog about it yesterday to try and clarify my thoughts. I think first thing, giving even more audience agency. I'm aware that under COVID we essentially made a version of this where we could test the basic mechanics. However, in terms of audience experience, we decided it was just going to be so much easier to say to the audience, you come in, you sit down, and you stay at a COVID-safe distance from everyone else. Obviously, in terms of a more satisfying audience experience, you might, for example, say, okay, who wants to do invocations? You come over here. You don't need to learn about offerings or divination. That's useless information to you. Similarly, I think coming back to the wider show, trying to build the situations the audience are invited to deal with from an earlier stage. We went with characters first, because particularly with a short process, it's useful to make sure that people performing have a clear sense of character and then the situation that those characters thrive in. Whereas with more time, I'd like to go, what are the situations that are interesting to deal with, and then build characters to facilitate that. And indeed, now we've seen things in action a bit more, we know a little bit more about what kind of characters are useful when doing supernatural ritual opera, and which ones perhaps take a bit more space or whatever. And there's more. You can read about it on my website. I'll put a link in chat if you're fascinated.
Yes, okay. And a reminder to our audience that we very much welcome your questions if you want to type them in the chat. But and tell us a bit what it's like flying blind without a score. I mean, I know you were in We Sing, I Sang last year, so you've clearly got form with Leo in interactive opera. I suppose I'm asking a two-part question. What's it like letting go, or is it coming home? And the second question is, does the learning accumulate as you do more and more pieces like this?
I mean, I do a lot of improvisation in my sort of compositional life and in my teaching in particular. So, using improvisation both as a compositional tool and as a learning tool, and as a way of dealing with things like students with imposter syndrome or sort of students who are very nervous about making sound in front of others is something that I love to do. So in that regard, it's a little bit like coming home. It's really exciting. It's really fun. What's much harder, We Sing, I Sang was a lot more abstract, and the suggestions were a little bit shorter. So I could just kind of let my mind go there, and whatever words came out. It was all very exciting. This was more structured in terms of instructions to the audience, in terms of making sure that Will and I, the other singer, were able to communicate with each other, that we were making sure people were following the blue lines and not coming outside of the COVID safe zones. And there were definitely points where my grammar suffered. I think there were definitely moments where Will and I would notice that the other one maybe hadn't quite made as much sense as they would have liked to. So that was, something had to give, and I think sometimes it was grammar. But it's so much fun. I think, again, talking to Will after the show, as musicians, it would have been wonderful to have more rehearsal time, or in the future to have more rehearsal time, so we could spend even more time building these different color palettes and different sort of musical palettes, and feeling so comfortable with each other that we could just spark off each other, I think, even more. Obviously, with taking COVID precautions, we were limited to very small circles. I think it would be really exciting in the future to think if we could move through the space to become closer to audience members, to become closer to each other. That would be really exciting as well.
Well, ritual, normally opera involves a lot more movement, of course, but this is COVID in ritual in the time of COVID.
Yeah.
I love that idea that you we're going completely off piste even from the English language. But I've seen it many times in my working life, and yeah, it's amazing what you can get away with as long as you do it with conviction. Audiences will go anywhere with you if you really believe what you're going on, even if you're coming out with a load of gobbledygook. We've got a question which I can nearly see, which from Steve. Oh, we've got two. Well, I can see half a question, which is how. Oh, there we go. How do you go about preparing such a work, Leo?
So this show's had a very long gestation from, well, quite a few years ago now. An alarming number of years ago, I started thinking a lot more about film tops, and I think back in 2015, 2016 that started, and particularly the thought of, well, now we have pretty good film ops. What's interesting about liveness? How do you make an opera where you actually have to be there, because fundamentally you're competing with Netflix and Disney Plus to get people to move anywhere, and interactivity is an obvious point. So partly just quite a few years of R&D in different forms of interaction, Wiesing Eisang being the sort of previous iteration of this loose concept, then coming up with a narrative shape that, so we loosely knew in advance what the audience shape would be emotionally. Even if we don't know what will happen, we know that we want the audience to feel vaguely satisfied. And most interactive theatre uses a shape loosely inspired by the hero's journey, so it's one linear narrative because of the more ritualistic thing, and partly also to just play with different narrative forms. I used a more dendritic structure like you might find in Indian narratives, where there's one central theme. In this case, all of the questions, push comes to shove, leaned into how are you supposed to relate to the uncanny things, what is the right way to do it, and that's partly what was going on with the two characters. So we had those three sections, and that, I suspect, is more or less it in terms of the narrative. We just agreed who the characters were in that space, and we developed the world, so we all more or less knew what was possible in that world. And then in terms of preparing it, we went through that world, we identified what were the three key aspects of the world. We had the uncanny things, craving bargains, the fact that you don't bargain unwisely with the uncanny things, and that the world has a bunch of weird, mystic stuff going on, and then attach musical motifs to that, because that both gives you a sound world to play off in the way of a sort of, palette of paints. It also quite usefully gives a way that, for example, if Cien suddenly thinks this feels like someone's doing an unwise bargaining thing, Cien can use that musical motif, and I, sitting in the middle, can go, oh, Cien thinks this might be unwise, or that someone is leaning in that direction, which is really convenient on stage, and practically allows a bit of communication without having to explicitly say stuff out loud. So that's the other thing we did, and then we practiced for a very short amount of time, which seemed to work. But if you would like to give us money, then please do, because it would be nice to have a full week of rehearsal rather than a day and a half.
Yeah, I'm suddenly flashing back. We've got a question from Elizabeth Dobson, who is a founder fan of Tete-a-Tete, who'll remember our Flying Fox, and that was interactive, not in the way you use the word, Leo, but the audience did sing and dance by the end of the second act. But how we rehearsed that was we left the door of the rehearsal room open, and the kids would just come in off the street, and towards the end of the rehearsal period, mums were dropping their kids off, so we became a kind of creche, and very useful it was too, because you really need all these people to practice on. Anyway, Elizabeth's question: how much briefing did the audience get before the start of the show? Cien, why don't you answer that?
So the audience briefing, I don't believe there was a huge amount online apart from sort of general, this will be improvised, this will be strange, come along. Once they entered the theatre, Leo made a whole bunch of incredible posters that informed them of the world that we were in. So we did spend a long session. We spent a quite short session as a company, thinking about the world that this was, this kind of dystopian alternate London, which still is very close to our own time. So the posters that went up would tell you little things like, wash your hands so the weird doesn't spread, and have you seen this man? And, I think my favorite one was Anthony, who forgot his waders and disappeared in the floods. Don't be like Anthony. And then when they got in, Will, playing Graham, and I would sort of wander in and out while Leo was being strange and uncanny in the middle, and just occasionally drop a little bit. There you go, exactly. Would drop a little bit of information, and they did have a whole bunch of printouts, which they could read through that would explain even more. That's my favorite one. I love it so much.
I hate Anthony so much.
His family's forgotten him. I think when we did the tech run through, we did notice that people were finding things quite confusing. So Will and I, when we then were doing the sort of coming in and saying, oh, hello, how about this? We did explicitly become a bit more like, look at those printouts you've got. Oh, wouldn't it be a good idea to read those printouts? But that was it pretty much. Then I think, Leo, you very much wanted it to be learning through doing. You kept talking about the cha-cha slide and about the ways you can encode learning in a song.
Yes, so with this particular iteration, again, COVID, it meant that we gave everyone a sort of full pack of all the information they could possibly need, which frankly was probably rather overwhelming, I imagine. In an ideal world, of course, one would give, that you would say, I want to do invocations. Here's an introduction to invocations, and here's someone to talk to you about it. And yeah, we tried to keep the briefing as minimal as possible, so that, please show most of the briefing was, we cut quite a bit of it, but leaning into just introducing the ideas of the world, having the bargainers, oh, do you know anyone who's been bargaining? Do you know anyone who's made an unwise bargain? That sort of fun, because the main thing for the audience to know is how does the world work? That's the thing they don't know coming into the space, and invocations are quite simple. As Zian said, we're in the next iteration, I'm hoping to bring in some sort of ritual songs, whether that's folk songs for rowing, that kind of thing, or my favourite example of a modern ritual song, as Cian said, the cha-cha slide. It is a ritual to teach you how to do the cha-cha slide. And it's a modern example of that genre, and I think therefore a useful one for a good audience, and it's fun.
I've no idea what it is. Does somebody want to demonstrate it for
Slide
us?
to the right, slide to the left. Let me see you clap your hands. Do you not know that?
No.
Sorry.
Okay, but now I understand what you're talking about. I mean, I can give a third perspective as somebody who was in the audience twice, which is the first time, of course, because I was already backstage, I missed out on this front of house stuff. I'm rather sad. It was rather marvellous. And the first time round, we had all this documentation, and it was fascinating. It was rather overwhelming because, of course, like everybody who works in the theatre, I turned up 1 minute before it started, and I was rifling through all my papers, going, "What the hell's going on here?" But actually, it did paint rather a vivid background of what was going on. But I was probably too absorbed in that to really take on board the instructions I was being given at the same time. And for the second time I saw it, didn't you, a set of instructions that it summarised what was being told to us that you've just seen, our audience, that CN and Will were singing to us. And I think that was really helpful, because when you got lost, you could go, oh yes, what is an invocation? Anyway,
that was David Salter's idea, the amazing tete-a-tete of tete-a-tete. Everyone should love David Salter. He is the best person at tete-a-tete.
Oh, thanks. I think everyone is first equal. Anyway, Jennifer Stevenson, what happens next with this piece?
Ooh, I think that's probably a me question. I go away and I rewrite it. I have currently 3 pages of notes which I'm going to deal with, double-sided, and trying to make sure that it has that element of audience interaction, trying to make sure that I think the unique space it occupies within the interactive theatre landscape is it allows you to do something that genuinely feels a bit supernatural, because that's what music brings to it. And also I just like weird stuff. Someone said afterwards, this was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Of course it came from your brain. And that was the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. There's a residency in St Maltings at the end of January, which will be hopefully used to create a final version of something we can bring to the stage as virtually opera. And that my ambition is that it's a little tighter in terms of the explanation, so that audiences can get on with doing stuff. The audience should have much more agency over what they do, because rather than being presented with, here's an individual situation to deal with, they can be presented with, here's a world, there's stuff going on in it. Potentially also having a few extra characters. I'd love to have a traitor mechanic, because I love traitor mechanics in tabletop role-playing games, and that's a major reference point for this as a project, as well as one particular verse of the Tao Te Ching, number 60, if memory serves.
Well, can you define those two things, Leo?
Tabletop role-playing games are...
well, traitor mechanics and
traitor mechanics.
Number 60 of the Tao.
So traitor mechanics are a thing in some games where it is encouraged by the game that some people will be playing against the other players. If, for example, I'm trying to think of a good example from board games, and I'm slightly struggling. Maybe in some versions of Pandemic, if you've played that board game, the general team is trying to stop the virus. You might play someone who's working for a evil organization who want to deliberately infect other people with the virus, and your other players don't know. In Bargain With Uncanny Things, it might be everyone else is trying to make a good bargain. However, in contrast, you might have one audience member who's actually trying to free the uncanny things, and that's their goal. And it just creates a fun thing for one special person, and I like those. And I also love the idea that they might win.
And Lesson 60 of the Tao.
Lesson 60 of the Tao Te Ching is very briefly about the relationship with unquiet spirits, probably is a good translation. I don't speak Chinese in any iteration. And how neither dominating them nor utterly pushing them away or yielding to them totally is going to work, and the path is one of balance, much like many other verses of the Tao Te Ching. It's very much about balance as the important point, and with the uncanny things, someone's asked if someone bargained unwisely, what type of action music would happen? Would chaos ever ensue? Yes, there are backup plans for that. I'm not going to spoil them because I hope to bring back the show, but if the audience, for example, refuse to do invocations and tell the uncanny thing to do anything, I get to do stuff to the library and to Mosin Hawk, and I was so upset that I didn't get to, though I did at one point get all the tokens on the board, which meant at the end I was allowed to free myself, and that was fun.
What happened?
When the uncanny thing frees itself, it depends what the audience have done. That audience, because they completely ignored Graham Ludgate's problems, the uncanny thing was sort of, well, I like you, Listen Grove, but Graham Ludgate's sister, who he's forgotten the face of, I'm going to go and be her friend. And yes, there may be a sequel of Graham Ludgate's sister comes running in, sort of, please, my brother's terrible, please help.
Well, I was going to ask CN, I might do it anyway, that same question: if someone bargained unwisely, what type of action music would happen? Would chaos ever ensue?
It was interesting. So the second one that you've all seen of the show, the first show, we were pushing hard on the first ritual, make a bargain to restore Graham's library, and the first audience did that. This second audience went, nope, we've jumped the gun. We want to find Mosin Hawk, which was set up to be the second ritual. So we had to just adapt to it on the spot and say, cool, that's what you've chosen to do. Now you have a choice for the second one. I think that's the thing. We were definitely in the tech rehearsal when people just weren't bargaining at all. Will and I had a little moment of, I wonder what we can do now. And I think, Leo, you were much more. I think we were sort of conscientiously thinking, oh God, we can't let the show fail. And Leo was like, it wouldn't be failure. All kinds of weird stuff would happen. So it would be really exciting, I think, that the more you could rehearse with other people and with audiences to really think about how much you could break things and how much you could stretch things. Yeah.
The fun thing with this show is I have a document with a set of sort of essentially a flow diagram of likely things for the audience to do. Already having done 2 proper runs of it, the audience have already gone off that plan in unexpected ways. I did not expect someone to kneel before me and offer me their hair. And again, that sort of thing can happen, and the audience can set their own goals, which is really fun. And there'll be, in terms of what happens next to this piece, just throwing to Jennifer Stevenson's questions, we'll be bringing that level of audience freedom much more into it. There'll be obvious problems and quiet problems. There is a very secret ending, which within paperwork there is a way to find a cool secret.
But our dinger is digging, and Leo can see it because
Yeah.
he's here in our control room. But thank you very much for that. A very interesting and extremely full and rapid chat. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Cien. Thank you, Leo.
Yes, is there one final thing can I
Oh.
say? Some of the game mechanics that we use for this are now available online if you would like to try them out as a playtesting thing. So I'm just popping them there in case that is a thing you may want to see. If those of you asking how did it all work, there are some free copies available.
And so how do you get them?
You go to the link in the chat box.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm aware you can't see the chat.
No. Good. So once again,
Thank you.
goodbye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.